All right. Let's hop in. All right. So today we're going to hop back into Derek. Let's do siblings. You stretch your arms as high you stretched your arms high as you stepped into the spot on your wooden floor where the last rays of sunshine landed. The remaining warmth of the day was still enough to tickle your skin. You felt pleasantly full from dinner, and the only thing that was left on your plate was waiting for a knock. Derek closed your door as he came in behind you. You'd gotten to spend the afternoon together, and you knew his mom would arrive to pick him up any minute. Thanks for having me over, Ari. You don't have to thank me for that. And why am I not surprised you tried to take dishwashing duty away from Elizabeth? Derek pressed his palms together, flipping each hand over and under in a loop. It could almost be viewed as a mock washing gesture, but he was probably being awkward. I just thought it'd be fair. I didn't help with the cooking. You're so sweet. You're so funny. You're too much. You're welcome to do my dishes, Derek. You shook your head in amusement. You sighed. That's so sweet, though. Aw, thanks. Oh, Derek, Mr. Manners. But before you could settle in enough to even take your seats, a pounding set of thuds cracked the laid-back mood. Derek scrunched his limbs totally inward from the shock. You'd been keeping an ear out for the exact sound, but it was completely unnecessary. Tourists halfway across town wouldn't miss that blare. The racket was followed by the door Derek had so carefully closed a moment ago swinging open. Obviously, the person on the other side wasn't Miss Suarez. It was your older sister with a huff and eye roll. She delivered a brief message as fast as she could spit it out. Derek's mom is here, and our moms made me come get you about it. Okay, we're coming. Why didn't you knock if you were going to give us a chance to answer? We got the message. Go do the dishes, Elizabeth. Thank you for telling us. What a great messenger, Cal. You stared wordlessly. Okay, we're coming. She gave you another roll of her eyes, but didn't waste a single extra word on you. In one motion, she curled her fingers over the edge of the door, twisted around, and yanked the door shut. The books and boxes on your desk shelves shook. Derek's teeth clattered, too. He whispered through a grimace. Man. Sorry for that. She's so rude. Want to trade Nicholas or George for her? I'll take both if you want. You're going in frustration? Are your eardrums all right? You looked away, embarrassed over your family. It would be funny. Nicholas is 6, George is 10, and Elizabeth is 15. It's almost an even exchange of siblings' existence years. No deal, sorry. She gets extra grouchy sometimes right now, for example. Derek's shoulders slowly eased down into their resting position, but his expression was pinched. He began to whisper while glancing the way your sister went. His voice was hushed, secretive, almost afraid Elizabeth might slap the door open again, find out what he was talking about her. Do you think it's about the dishes, or... I don't know. You could only give a half-hearted answer. You struggled to understand why Elizabeth acted out the way she did a lot of the time. But your mom is waiting. We've got to go so you can get home. Right, Ari. Derek's mouth opened and closed without saying anything else. He lifted hand to try and gesture, but dropped without going anywhere. It made you raise your eyebrow. Yeah? His bright green eyes squinted into a narrow slit, but you could still see the way they darted around. His gaze was trained on the ground, scanning across the floorboards, though everything that really mattered was probably inside his actual head. I was wondering. He paused again. Derek's hand balled into a fist. He let out a breath and finally asked the questions. Are you busy tomorrow? You blinked. That was all? No. The simple answer still made Derek flinch. He might not be at all. Really? Yeah, really. That's what I said. Then he spread his fingers and arms out in not quite a shrug. Would you want to come over to my house for the day? The tone of the voice and poise he took was casual in a scripted way. He definitely wanted you to feel like it was totally optional and not a problem if you turned him down. You couldn't tell if it was the end or just the point in process, but you were going along for the ride. I can probably do that. I'd have to ask my mom's. Derek leaned in closer, slowly opening his eyes wider. Some kind of suspense was growing. All right, all right. He dipped his head in tiny, repetitive nods. The look on his face went distant again, the way it did when he was thinking deeply. Then, finally, he flung his hands up completely to shrug and spoke the question he'd been stalling on. Would you want to come over tonight instead? A sleepover? We could, camp out in my living room. It'd be fun, our own little party. Now the nervousness made sense to you. You were still the only... Now you were the one feeling nervous. You were completely stunned. Confused was compounded. You almost laughed. It absolutely tickled you. Nervous. I know that's pretty out of nowhere. If you can't make it or don't want to or anything, I'm totally cool with it. I want to. Hopefully my moms will let me. Let's do it. Yeah, why not? You nodded happily in agreement. Would your parents be able to manage that? I don't know, maybe. Let's do it. Awesome. Come on, we'll ask right now. Yeah, definitely. My mom is waiting for us. The two of you left your bedroom and bounded down the stairs one after the other. Your warm greeting came as you hit the landing point on the first floor. Hello, Derek and Ari. Your two moms and Derek's one mom were gathered in the entryway of the living room. Derek reached a hand towards her as he waved it. Hey, Mom. Hey, welcome to our house, even though you've been here a few minutes already. After smiling at him and you, Derek's mom turned her head over her shoulder to speak to your parents. Thank you again for taking care of him. Mom. Derek's uncharacteristically broke polite decorum by interrupting his mom. It got her attention and she let him speak. I had something I wanted to ask you and Miss Payne. Oh? What is it, sweetie? He had the attention and encouragement of all three moms on his stage. Derek didn't beat around the bush the way he did before. I was wondering if Ari could come with us and spend the night at my house, please. He knew your moms well enough to foresee potential concerned reactions, and so Derek sped through his extra terms to make sure her depart before answering. We'd set up in the living room instead of my room, and my parents and brothers would still be around. People could keep an eye on us. As expected, Mom and Ma were instantly thrilled. They were shocked by the possibility. They weren't instantly thrilled. Great. And while he was successfully in avoiding the first obvious pitfall, your mom still had completely different apprehensions to fret about. That's pretty last minute. You're about to walk out the door. We couldn't have Ari impose. Derek's mom stayed strangely silent after he popped the question. She fixed a stare at her son, crossed her arms against her chest, and shook her head at him. Look at all of them, though. She's smirking. Both the moms are just like, and Derek's just like, yeah, tell me. I need to know. But the shake didn't mean no. It had another meaning that maybe only a Suarez could get. She still smiled. We can find a place for Ari tonight if there's no family conflicts with that, and they would like to come over, of course. Both your moms turned their faces right towards one another on instinct. They were astounded that Derek's mom didn't mind. Huh. Mom scratched her head over it. Derek made a huge request with no advance warning. Miss Suarez had 3 children to care for already. It seemed unreasonable to her. For your ma, however, a light began to sparkle in her eyes. When she noticed you looking, she held your gaze. Ari, do you want to go? Yes, so much. Ma wrapped both her arms around one of her wives. I see. I think that would be all right just this time. Really? Your mom sputtered. She clearly hadn't gotten to that page of the script. Your mom got an encouraging pat on the top of her hand for her troubles. She remained absolutely perplexed, mouth open, eyes wide. Mom could only process enough to realize that she'd become the odd mom out. She probably didn't know exactly why she was doing it, but Mom turned to look at you. Pack it up, Ari. You won't want to keep them waiting. You snapped your gaze to Derek. He'd done the same. The two of you shared a matching look of astonishment. It was almost identical to the gesture your mom had made when Miss Suarez first accepted Derek's proposition. Thank you, Miss Payne and Payne. Thanks, Moms. Yes, no way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You were the last words. Excited. The deal was finalized with a crisp clasp for Miss Suarez. Pamela is right. You should get what you need for the night. You're coming along for the ride. I'll help. Neither of you gave time to change their minds. You ran back to your room and began to pack and whirlwind. As you shoved clothes into the backpack, Derek hovered center of the room. He fidgeted with his energy that was going unused. Can you get me a spare toothbrush? There's extra for traveling in the hall closet. Gotcha. He was gone in a flash. You took the very basic. You made sure to get the basics and something you personally could get without. portal game concept, pencil and paper, your favorite stuffed animal. I will tell you, my stuffed animal came with me everywhere. Derek returned in a sprint, toothbrush held over his head in triumph. With a grin, you threw it into the overnight bag. That was enough to get you by for a short trip. You zipped up, hooked it around your shoulder, and went to the door to check off the final requirements to leave. For the second time in a matter of minutes, you rushed down your stairs in a flurry of steps with Derek close enough that you'd almost stumbled into him. At the very bottom, you came to stand in front of the mom group. We're ready.
Good night.
Perfect. Good luck, kiddos. Have a great time. Gentle, rhythmically, Ma ran a hand over your hair. All her precious hopes for your safety and happiness ebbed from her fingertips into you.
Take care.
Good night, Ari. Take care. Night. See you. Oh my God, she has a van. Like normally when they show the car scenes, like I'm like, is it the same car? Like they're different, but I can't really tell. But hers, detectably different. There's 3 rows. There's a car seat. I love it. Well, it's technically a booster seat. Miss Suarez and Derek gave their own goodbyes afterwards. They returned to the minivan that had brought them here. And then almost unbelievably, you slid into the vehicle with them to go on their impromptu sleepover. The chill of the squeaky leather against your hands and the persistent smell of animal cracker crumbs kept you grounded in reality. Derek bounced against the seat, back like a kid on a roller coaster, and clicked his belt into place for the ride back to his condo. You strapped in too. You never could have imagined this evening taking you down this literal and metaphorical road, but you were eager to find out what happened next. The sun continued to sink as Derek's mom drove down the highway. When you arrived at your destination, so had night. The condo complex was nicely lit, well maintained, and the 3 of you easily made your way up to Derek's house and went right in. Slipping her set of jangling keys onto a nearby wall hook, Miss Suarez called out from the hall into the empty living. God damn it! Into the empty living room. We're home. You braced your ears for the second sibling caused commotion of the evening that you knew would come. Derek's back! Nicholas tore out of his bedroom and thundered across the floor until he had his arms gripped around his big brother's legs. Even with all the force 6-year-old Nicholas could muster, it was hardly a bump against Derek. He absorbed the impact calmly, giving his little sibling a pat on the head for his troubles. Yeah, we're back. The 2 remaining boys of the family came from the same room at a snail's pace in comparison to the first, but soon enough, Mr. Suarez and George were both with you.
Welcome back.
Welcome home. Wrong button. George rubbed a growing sleepiness from one eye. He took in the scene with undisguised confusion. Why is Ari here? Hi, I've come to visit. I'm sleeping over. He looked down and waited for somebody to explain. What do you mean? I live here, you tease. What, Mom? She answered matter-of-factly. Ari is staying over with us tonight. George clamped his mouth shut. He might have had something to say about the spur-of-the-moment plans, but was obedient enough to not argue with his mother. Mr. Suarez, however, had a childlike glee in his expression. Oh, very good. Derek cut into his dad's excitement with a reply a little too soon. He had completely normal words to say, but it'd been put on fast forward. Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, we're going to camp out in the living room. Can we borrow the tent? Derek's hands were balled into fists and held up near his collarbone, overzealously, kind of protectively. His father looked down at him with familiar, serene expression. You knew exactly where you'd seen it before when Mr. Suarez placed his hand on top of Derek's head. He took care of Derek the same way Derek cared for Nicholas. Of course. And the gesture worked the exact same charm on Derek. His shoulders relaxed, his expression softened slightly, the pounding nerves that had been building faded. Camping! Nicholas shouted without warning. The entire exchange had held no interest for the youngest one until that moment. That's right, Nico. Derek reached down and carefully placed hands on Nicholas's shoulders. to nudge him off. Nicholas went willingly, giddily, repeating the same word, this time amazed confirmation rather than as a question. Camping! With a thumbs up, Derek stood tall. The plan was in motion. Ari, you can put your bag down and sit if you want to. I'll go grab some other stuff. When moving past you, Derek took a second to lean, whispered light-hearted reassurance. The little bros will go to bed before we do, and Mom is going to be watching them tomorrow. You're not here to babysit the whole time again. Okay, cool. Then the whole group broke off into 3 sets. Derek ran to his room with Nicholas right on his heels, while Mr. and Mrs. Suarez left the space to the kids returning to their own bedroom. You and George stayed where you were. George shuffled over to the kitchen counter, sat on a bar stool. He wasn't helping, but he wasn't getting in the way. George was more sensitive than he let on. You made sure to smile reassuringly at him, so he knew he was wanted there. His lips quirked up just a little in response. Then you took your own seat on the couch. You got to unpacking. The first thing you pulled out of the bag was your stuffed animal. Placed that on the coffee table for safekeeping. You kept busy sorting through it all until Derek returned with the goods. 2 pillows were under each of his arms. He had a few brightly patterned blankets draped over his shoulder, and the rope loop of a big nylon backpack was hooked around one wrist. Nicholas supported the effort by carrying one long pillow. He clutched it tight to his chest as best he could, considering the pillow was about as long as his whole torso. Derek piled up the supplies on the opposite side of the couch from where you were. Nicholas opened his arms wide to let the pillow drop to the floor in a soft puff. It made Derek chuckle proudly. I'm going to put together the tent. Nicholas, George, do you want to help? I'll help. I'm going to put together the tent. Nicholas bounced around Derek in absolute eagerness. In the distance, George pushed away from the counter. Yeah. His expression was flat and wide-eyed, but there was a hopeful rise in his voice. He got up from the bar stool. Okay, I'm pretty sure you guys can't hear it, but I'm going to turn the volume for the voices up, and they just kind of come suddenly sometimes. So just be aware that it's gonna come up because they do speak. I'm here too, remember? I'm helping. Let's do it. The declaration made you, Derek, Nicholas, and George get to work making heads and tails of the tent. Derek yanked open the cinch and top of the pack while he walked to the furthest spot in the living room. Everyone followed his lead. He pushed the semicircle basket chair up against the edge of the counter so that the tent could go there instead. Derek dumped the contents of the bag onto the cream rug, leaned over on one foot while kicking the other in the air, reaching over and grabbed the instructions that fell out with the rest of the materials. He scanned over the steps briefly, but it was only after a refresher that Derek was able to get right into the process. Nicholas was assigned pull control. He kept watching on the pile, not letting any roll away, and would pass the tent legs over when they were needed. Stretching the fabric out took the rest of you. You, George, and Derek each grabbed a side and tugged. Derek had to squeeze himself against the tall potted plant in the corner. He snickered at the way the leaves curled around his face. Despite that, you got the tent laid out across the ground. The first time Nicholas got to pass a pole, it slapped against the wall in tiny space you were working in. George covered his ears and ducked. Derek snatched the end out of the air before it could do more damage. The little boy promised to be more careful. He got to keep his job and took it seriously. Piece by piece, the project slowly took shape until it was finally complete. The small, light gray tent sat in full form, nestled in the nook of the living room.
Good job, team.
All right, good job, everybody. As if he'd yelled into a cave, an echo of his words followed after. Good job. Nicholas threw his hands in the air with joy. George simply smiled, satisfied. Thanks for the help, everyone. It's a beauty. You applauded the success. I'm impressed we didn't break it. Good job. Impressed we didn't break it. Derek stuck his fist to his hips and gave the team an encouraging grin. Now we can actually do the indoor camping part of this living room camp out. Derek strolled up to the cabinet in the corner. He pulled open the intrusive doors and fiddled found with something inside. A poppy tune blared out as he turned the CD player. Nicholas leapt out onto the couch and swung his arms in the air to dance. George swayed his shoulders to the bubblegum notes. Their big brother wasn't done yet. He made a beeline for the kitchen cupboard. This time, the mood setter Derek retrieved was a pillow-sized bag of puffy marshmallows. Catch. That was the only warning before he sent the marshmallow sailing across the room, a perfect arc. George managed to snatch it from the air without a problem. The top of the bag was twisted around and sealed with a blue clip. The open side was stretched from the process of twisting and untwisting repeatedly. It had been well appreciated so far. George undid the clip and set it aside on the coffee table, his tongue pressed against the corner of his lips as he dug his hands deep into the bag just for the right one. Nicholas tilted over from the cushion and into the bag, filled his tiny fist with 2 marshmallows. He crushed them between his fingers, the fluffy confection squeezing through the cracks. It was really a party. Derek put his hand on the cupboard handle and shouted to over the music. Do you like marshmallows? No, they're not bad. Yeah, you plucked one out of the bag and ate it as your answer. No, but thank you. Ew, you shook your head apologizing. They're not bad. They're not my favorite, but they're not bad. I like one, but I don't need any. I'm gonna eat a bunch. I like one. He grabbed one for nibbling. It wasn't something you'd wanted to eat most days, but this night was the right time for marshmallows. The cupboard door swung closed, and nothing was there to obstruct your view of the bright grin on his face anymore. He finally joined the rest at base camp, which was the couch at the moment. George, get me one of those too. Without even one warning, George simply flicked a marshmallow at his brother, and same as before, Derek grabbed it midair. He bit one piece out of the top edge, chewing thoughtfully. Okay. There's no TV while camping, so having a sleepover movie wouldn't make sense. With the swallowing of marshmallows and a snap of his fingers, Derek empathetically played a grand idea. We'll play an ad-lib game. I'll make up a story, and the 3 of you can fill in some blanks to make it complete. George rolled his shoulder passively. He had finished his first treat and was poking around for another perfect selection. Okay. Nicholas smiled with a big white smile, but it wasn't just pearly teeth. His entire mouth was full of marshmallow mush. You took that reaction as a yes. The little ones were on board. Yeah, this is going to be good. All right, let me think. We needed a noun, a thing you can drive or ride on, a shape, a color, a food, a drink. Nicholas gulped painfully, forcing down way too much marshmallow goop all at once, but he wouldn't let anybody beat him to the punch. A truck. Nicholas's eyes were wide. He was practically vibrating from the sugar high mixed with the chance to add a truck to the story. Derek rubbed his back. That's the ride, George. The middle child plucked at the frayed plastic edge of the marshmallow bag. It might have taken him longer to come up with something than the youngest, but he did contribute an idea. Blue. Cool, we've got a color. Airy. The noun, the food, the drink. Shape. Don't worry about me, let them choose. Shape. Type of shape. Okay, give me 1 sec. I have to look up how to spell this. Oh. For those of you who are wondering what a dodecagon is, it is a 12-sided shape. And the reason I know this word is because I have this, which technically doesn't have 12 sides. I don't know how many sides it has. It has 1. Oh, no, it does have 12. It is a dodecagon. It's my fidget cube, dodecagon, 12 sides, which is why I know the word. Anyway, that works. Gotcha. He shifted his focus back to the boys. Derek's expression and the entire way he carried himself was different when speaking to them. It reminded you of a teacher interacting with his students. George, Nicholas, give me some more words. Orange. Uh, Nicholas, I picked the color. His words were both a low mumble and a high-pitched whine that was paired with crinkling noise coming from the marshmallow bag. George had started twisting in his hands. Derek swooped in to defuse the situation. He put his arm between the two brothers, physically keeping things separated.
This is gonna be
Don't
great.
worry, it's not the color, it's the food. George huffed. Nicholas grinned single-mindedly at his big brother, oblivious to the trouble he almost caused. That's another thing done. We need something else now. Apple juice.
Cool.
Perfect. There's a drink. Derek continued to warmly watch over his little siblings, but the words he spoke were for you. Ari, you're giving us the last one. A noun. The noun should be person, place, or thing. I got this. That's a thing. His expression somehow softened even more. Awesome. Derek pulled his chest back and folded his arms. He smirked, brows angled, and eyes squinted.
All right.
I can now tell the story of Baby Castle. Nicholas stamped his feet rapidly into the couch. He was absolutely squealing from the premise alone. Baby Castle? Yes, that's right. In a big open field, there was a stone fortress that was Baby Castle. Everybody who lived there was a little baby, but they didn't need any adults. Their greatest treasure was a giant golden Funko Pop at the center of the courtyard. They were always vigilant to protect it from greedy hands of grown-ups. George snorted. His mouth cheeks began to pull forward. Then one day, someone came to the gates of the castle on their truck. It was a man, not a baby, or even a kid. He had a dodecagon-shaped head and a fancy top hat. A 12-sided head. He was knocking on the door, demanding to be let in. They were just babies, and they needed supervision. It was a blue alert, and the guards were rushing to their stations. First line of defense was their orange catapult. It was loaded up and then fired. Bullseye. The orange knocked the top hat off his head, but the dodecagon-faced man wasn't deterred. He used his giant grown-up legs to climb over the wall. There was a panic in the castle. He had to be after the golden Funko Pop. Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot with precision. His hands had gone up in front of him with his palms facing forward. He looked like the goalie of a soccer game. But the babies weren't beaten yet. The squirt gun battalion lined up, and just as soon as the adults stepped foot on the other side, he was pelted with apple juice. He stumbled back, and the gatekeepers opened the door while he was blinded. He got pushed right out and back onto his truck, and the guards gave one more shove. The man with his truck without his hat slid down the hill and far, far away. The castle was saved. The babies and their Funko Pop were still free. Hooray. The end. A matching pair of cheers filled the air. Nicholas and George were thrilled by the yarn Derek had spun for them. You applauded the grand conclusion of Baby Castle too. It was a pretty dumb story, but very cute how Derek could entertain his brothers. You sniggered into your hand, just as amused as Nicholas and George. I want to impress you how Derek could improvise. The whole thing seemed really juvenile. I think it was funny. It was amazing. Living room campsite blowout kept rolling. Kept rolling from there. Whew. Derek turned the music up louder, making sure to skip any tracks that didn't fit the mood. George and Nicholas swung across the floor to dance. They threw marshmallows in the air and tried catching them with their mouths, and when that got old, they tried to see who could fit the most in their mouth at one time. Derek grooved to the beat and tapped his toes around as he collected the treats they missed. They picked up the pillows, they got knocked to the floor, and patted backs when their stuffed face made them cough. But that wasn't only Mr. Responsibility. Derek took his own shot at the marshmallow mouthful competition and blew his little brothers out of the water. You danced along with the boys. You were a new challenger in the marshmallow game. You threw your own marshmallow in the air. You took turns telling your own ad-lib story. Marshmallow game. Derek beat Derek. It was a tie between you and Derek. At least you did as good a job as George. You and you, even Nicholas, had done better than you. No, me and my brother were pretty neck and neck at that game. The stuff would have started coming out of your nose if you had tried to get any more in. As the night continued, Derek moved on from party to hot spot to chill out inside the tent. He was on his side, propped up his elbow. It took a few minutes for Nicholas to notice his brother's disappearance from his sightlines. He knew the moment it happened he'd been bouncing from one cushion on the couch, but came to a firm stop, sinking his feet deep in place. A helpless pout flickered on Nicholas's face before it almost instantly curved into a sly grin. Nicholas knew where he could find his favorite person. He leapt from the arm of the couch to land at the entrance of the tent. From there, he sprung forward like a shot straight into Derek, shoving him over into his back with an oof. Derek didn't get up. He flopped his arms out and laid motionless. 3, 2, 1. Derek was down for the count. Nicholas was the winner. He claimed his victory. Nicholas curled up on Derek's flattened chest. He tuckered himself out. You sat and stretched out in the blanket inside the tent. You balled up on the blanket inside the tent. You laid down on the blanket inside the tent. You sat stretched on the floor near the tent. You sat balled up on the floor near the tent. You lay down on the floor near the tent. Inside tent on blanket. George wandered over to sit down cross-legged. He had one shoulder in the tent and the rest of him was out. Derek sat, eyes drooped closed, and they heaved satisfied sigh.
Sheesh.
I'm told to keep up with you, bros. You can party way harder than me. He could still muster enough energy to move a hand over his brother's fluffy marshmallow speckled hair. The little boy snuggled his cheeks into Derek's jersey even more. Still cross-legged, George took hold of his ankles and rocked himself gently back and forward. Childlike position conflicted how contemplative his next words were.
I wonder what things will be like when we really are older.
The brothers with the most days behind The brother with the most days behind him smiled softly while his eyes remained shut. That's easy. 10 years from now, I'm going to be a famous athlete. Nicholas will obviously be the cheer captain at all my games. Derek earned a squealing giggle from Nicholas. He even kicked a leg out like a puppy who'd gotten a tummy scratch. George, you can be my career manager. George stopped his movement, sitting a little taller. A smile pulled at the edges of his mouth.
Obviously.
Harry will be there too. The perks of that perk to your own interest. Yeah, I'll be on the same sports team, whatever it is. I'll be Derek's trophy spouse. I would? What would I be doing? Oh yeah, I'll be the one competing team, whatever it is. I'll take care of the merchandising. You waited for him to keep going. We're gonna find out. You'll be achieving your own dreams. Okay. This is funny though. I like this. Derek coughed unintentionally as soon as he said your contribution to the master plan, but he rolled with it. Right, it's the best trophy I ever won. Top of the shelf. Then his voice drifted off quietly. And the 4 of us would all be neighbors. You thought that it sounded wonderful. He wanted to live next to you. He wanted you to be part of his future. Derek and George and Nicholas, you glanced at each other. Their faces glad you got to be there. You went to different schools, lived in different towns, had different families, but sometimes you were able to share your worlds with each other. And maybe someday Derek's story would come true and you'd be even closer. By that time, wasn't now, all too soon, the Suarez parents reappeared, taking their younger children off to bed in their own room. Despite nearly being asleep already, Nicholas gasped Derek's shirt when his dad reached to pick him up. Derek kept his one hand on Nicholas's head and pressed the other against the floor, slowly shifting into a sitting position. Nicholas's vice-like grip made it easy to do without either of them falling over. When he was upright, Derek collected his little brother in his arm fully and shuffled out of the tent. This is pretty cool, huh, Nico? Usually I'm all the way in my room, but tomorrow all you have to do is open the door, look down the hall, and I'll be right there. Derek's whispering soothingly on the path to the back room, putting to bed not just the delicate bundle he carried, but also the likely resistance the boy would have put up. George trailed behind his other brother. He didn't need the extra help, but Derek stood in place. He didn't move until the middle one could come up by his side. All together, the 3 Suarez sons went through the door. You waited in the living room quietly. Maybe a minute or two passed before Derek switched off with his parents. He came out empty-handed, and they went in. He took wide tiptoeing steps over the campsite. His sleepiness from before was wiped away by a second wind of excitement. Derek made it back to the tent and put a hand to his mouth, watching the hall like a hawk for any signs of his family.
It's all good.
We've got to change to our pajamas, but we don't have to go to sleep for real. You got to your feet, his eagerness rubbing off on you. The both of you quietly bustled between the bathroom and living room, finishing all last minute prep. Derek's parents lingered at the edge of the hall until both you and Derek were completely set. PJs on, teeth brushed, the works. Good night, Derek and Ari.
Night.
Sleep well, enjoy the great outdoors of the living room. Wait. Night, Mom, night, Dad. Good night. Night. Good night, don't let the bad boys bite. Miss Suarez hit the light. The condo blinked into darkness. There were footsteps, silence, the click of a door opening and shutting. His parents had returned to their own bedroom, this time to turn in for the rest of the night. With the opening and intermission over, part two of the Derek and Ari at home adventure could begin. Derek went from sitting up perfectly straight, ready for some non-existent interview, to dropping forward onto his stomach. He squirmed around using his elbows. The effort fluttered the tent and blanket, making a soft crinkling sound. When he had positioned himself facing you, Derek rested his head against the top of one fist. He grinned keenly. The rest of his family might have been right across the condo, but this was still the first chance to talk just between yourselves since the sleepover started. He'd been waiting for it. Hey, Ari. Oh, look at his little cute pajamas. That's adorable. And I don't know why I find it so adorable, but I do. Hi, Ari. His cheeks lifted. His cheeks lifted high enough to push the bottom of his eyes as he whispered with a childlike sense of secret sharing.
So,
I was wondering if we were being completely serious, what would you want to be doing in the future? Do you have, I don't know, a goal or a dream? Yeah, I do, not really. You nodded without a word. You shook your head at the question. My dream is exactly what you were saying before. I'm serious about that. I do. Want to learn a lot, want to be famous. I'd like to help people. I'd like to make a lot of money. Hopefully be able to create things. I want to be very skilled. As an adult, I want to travel. It would be amazing to fall in love. I'd really want to actually feel like I'm a responsible adult, but it's a secret. I'd love to fall in love. Yeah. Want to learn a lot. Knowledge is power. I'd like to help people. I want to be very skilled. I want to create things, make a lot of money, and I'd love to travel. And that sort of stuff. Cool, thanks for telling me. Derek contemplatively rolled over on his back. The arm that had held his chin up was now tucked under his head for support. There instead, his eyes never broke away from yours despite flipping upside down. He could move as freely as he wanted and was taking full advantage of that. When his siblings were around, he had a lot of work with 8 limbs and 2 heads, thanks to Nicholas' literal attachment to him. And that got your train of thought fully on track of siblings. You opened your mouth and said, I wish I had little siblings. I'm so glad I'm the youngest of my family. I wonder what it'd like to be an only child. I wish my older sibling was as nice as yours. I wish I had a second sibling. Siblings are complicated. I have always wanted a little sibling. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to hit like and subscribe. That way you can come back when the next one comes out. Because hopefully, if you've stayed this long, you've enjoyed the video. I hope see you guys next time, and have a great day. Bye.